Okay, are we on? Okay, good morning. Good morning and welcome. I'm Kathy Deligianis. I'm a member of the governing board here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. I'm also the current treasurer. Whether you're on Zoom or here in the sanctuary, it's so nice to see so many people here. We're so glad you're with us this morning. I wanted to start off by wishing a happy Easter to all Eastern Orthodox Christians, which includes most of the people in Ukraine and all of my Greek family relatives. When I was growing up, we always called it Greek Easter and American Easter, which is not really what it is. It's different calendars, but we liked having our own holiday, and buying chocolate bunnies half price was great. No matter how old or young you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, however you identify, and whomever you love, please know that you're welcome here. I have several announcements this morning. First of all, we do apologize for the state of the building. We are installing a new HVAC system, which is underway, and it's progressing, so that's good, but things are a bit in disarray. So those of you who haven't been in the building for a while, if you see the stuff lying around, that's why. Now I would like to give you an update on the Stewardship campaign. As of today, we have received 129 pledges for a total of $346,516, which is better than we did last year. Yay. So thank you so much, all of you who have made your pledges, all of you who increased your pledges from last year. Contributions from members and friends make up almost 70% of our budget because we are a self-sustaining church. So your support is what keeps us going. These results put us at 90% of our goal of 3,885, so we're not quite there yet. So if you haven't pledged yet and you'd like to, you can see me after the service, or you can contact Kara Fortner, who's our stewardship chair, and you can also do it online as well. Okay, after the service, there will be a family gathering on the playground right outside. So whether you attended in person or online, you can gather at the playground, get to know families, bring a lunch, and just hang out. Next Sunday, we have a very special service. We are welcoming Reverend Dr. Barbara Wells Ten Hove back to UUCR as a guest speaker for a very special service led by Reverend Scott. It's been 40 years since Reverend Barbara left her home in Reston on a journey of ministry. The gifts she took from the church she grew up in, this church, are many. Now she returns to offer a blessing and a prayer for the religious home that raised her. I also have two announcements from the music department. Our adult and children's choirs and our handbell ensemble are welcoming new members. If you sing or play an instrument or would like to join any of the music groups, let Cynthia know. Also this summer, the music committee is organizing an outing to the opera at Wolf Trap. It's La Traviata, which is one of my favorites, so I'm hoping we can make it. There's an announcement in the e-blast, and you have to sign up by May 15th. Okay, leading our service today is Reverend Scott Alexander, and we're joined this morning by Cynthia Young, Director of Music, Linda Weaver, Director of Religious Education, guest accompanist Diane Carsten-Pelak, and our very special guest musician, Kate Sheppard. Kate is the daughter of church members Mark Sheppard and Dana Jones Sheppard. She grew up attending UCR. She's now a junior at Potomac Falls High School. She's been playing the viola since the 4th grade. She's a member of the Loudon Youth Symphony Orchestra and has just been accepted into the Virginia Governor's School for the Performing Arts for this coming summer. So, congratulations, Kate. Kate says that playing in the UCR Handbell Choir inspired her love of music. Thank you so much for being here. Bob Anthony is serving as our worship associate. And thank you always to our rotating production team consisting of Mike Schmidt, Amelia Turner, Maggie Mack, and David Namey. Now let us enter our time of worship together. Let us center ourselves, take a deep breath, and listen to Gigue from Cello Suite No. 1 by J.S. Bach, performed by Kate Sheppard.
Welcome to all. Before I begin this morning, I need to make a dedication, a sad dedication. Last night, I received an email this morning from Sydney Wild, former minister of our church, that Dennis Daniel, the co-minister of this congregation, has died. And I want to read what she wrote me this morning. My beloved, Dennis passed away peacefully in his sleep about 6:30 p.m. Saturday night. It was time. He had spent the last 4 days growing weaker and weaker and frustrated that he could not do the simplest things. Yesterday and today, he slept 90% of the time and then drifted away. It was about as good a death as we could have hoped for. I am all right, crying a lot and wanting, for the moment, to be alone. I'm waiting for the Neptune Society to arrive and slowly put my house in order. I will be in touch soon. I wrote her several emails this morning, one of which indicated that I would be lighting a special candle of dedication and love and memory to Dennis. Now let us proceed, please, with our worship. I chose these opening words to be read responsively. Your line, which we begin with, and I will cue you, is written in the order of service. It says, "We join with the earth and with each other." That's your line. So let us begin by saying this together. We join with the earth and with each other to bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air. We join with the earth and with each other to renew the forests, to care for the plants, to protect the creatures. We join with the earth and with each other to celebrate the seas, to rejoice in the sunlight, to sing the song of the stars. We rejoice in the earth and with each other to recreate the human community, to promote justice and peace, to remember our children. We join with earth and with each other. We join together as many and diverse expressions of one loving mystery for the healing of the earth and the renewal of all life on this Earth Day, Sunday.
Good morning. Our opening hymn today is number 207, Earth Was Given as a Garden. The words are on the back of your order of service, or you can pick up a hymnal if you like. If you are zooming in from home, the words should appear in your chat box, and we hope you will sing along with us. And I invite you now to join in body or spirit and sing with me.
Was given as a garden, cradle for humanity, tree of life and tree of knowledge, praise for artists.
Today's chalice lighting words are by Julianne Lepp. A large gray rock is cracked down the middle, where many small colorful stones are caught. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deepest questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to the unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and of welcoming of multiple truths.
In this church, we recommit to each other every Sunday by singing a covenant together. Love is the spirit of this church. We will be singing along with the virtual choir video featuring our choir and members of our own congregation, and the words will be in the video. If you are at home, do please sing along, and that also goes for those of us here in the sanctuary together. If you are visiting us this morning for the first time, we hope you will accept this song as our blessing to you.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in these, to seek truth in love, and to help one another in fellowship.
Good morning. Great to see everyone here and on Zoom. For our Time for All Ages on this Earth Day Sunday, we have a story based on Brave Enough by Noreen Kimball. Once there was a young girl who loved to write stories and poetry. Many of her stories were about the land and the animals around her home. This girl was Rachel Louise Carson. Anyone here heard that name before, Rachel Carson? Yes, a lot of us. She was born in 1907, and when she grew up, she became a writer and a scientist. She wrote beautiful stories about nature, and they were described so well that you could feel like you were experiencing these places and things yourself. As a scientist, she made sure that she described what she saw and that everything that she wrote was true. Since she spent a lot of time outdoors, she noticed that fish and birds were dying. And she discovered that the reason for this was chemicals that were being sprayed from airplanes to get rid of bugs that were damaging the plants that farmers grew. These chemicals not only killed the insects, they were getting into the water and the soil, and they were killing the animals and birds. And eagles and many other species of animals were dying off and disappearing. She wrote articles, and she went to Washington, D.C. and talked to the U.S. Congress, trying to let people know that they were doing damage to the environment. She wrote about the problem in a book, and she described skies which were still and quiet because the birds, many of them were dying. And she called that book Silent Spring. She, as I mentioned, she was very careful that everything that she wrote was true. And in this case, she asked other scientists to help her check the facts because she knew that the companies that were creating these chemicals would say that everything was wrong, that people couldn't trust her book if even one fact was wrong. People read this book, Silent Spring, and they started demanding that the government stop the use of these chemicals. The president and the Congress asked scientists to check her facts. And as Rachel Carson expected, the chemical companies said that she was wrong. The scientists, after checking everything, found out that yes, the chemicals were getting into the water and soil and killing animals. Because she was brave enough to write and talk and keep writing and talking until someone would listen, the government banned the use of these chemicals, and they made laws to make sure that new chemicals were tested more carefully. Because of her and her insistence on speaking out, we have animals and birds in numbers that we might not have. And there are eagles flying in our skies. She believed that people could make a difference and save the earth. Because of her words, people were inspired to create the first Earth Day in 1970. And because of the importance of her work, there's a school, Rachel Carson Middle School, named after her in this area, and people who love the earth celebrate her birthday on May 27th. A colleague of mine wrote that on the 40th anniversary of Earth Day in 2010, people were asked to do one small earth-friendly act every day from Earth Day until Rachel Carson's birthday on May 27th. I wasn't able to confirm that this really happened, but it sounds like a great idea to me. And I hope you'll consider joining me in doing one simple thing every day to care for the earth until May 27th. The children in preschool through 5th grade will be talking more about this downstairs today, and Reverend Scott will be sharing some ideas in his sermon. Now, we hope that those of you who are in 8th grade and below will stay and join us in a song, and then we'll sing you out to your classes.
To celebrate Earth Day, we wanted to sing a song with the children before they leave. It's a beautiful Tom Chapin round called This Pretty Planet. So I think that we have a slide. Oh, there it is. Wonderful. It's like magic. We have a slide up there with the words. The words are also on the back of your order of service. We're going to start by singing it once through for you in case you don't know the song, and then we're going to make a round together. Okay, so here we go. We're going to sing it for you once.
Gentle blue giants
and then I will lead you. Will be part 2 of the round. Okay?
Go with joy, may your way be peace. Joy be yours through all your days. Live and learn to serve the world and dance, dance on your way.
So now is the time in our service when we share our joys and concerns and sorrows so that no one ever has to hold them alone. If you are joining us remotely by Zoom this morning, you may wish to light a candle, real or virtual, wherever you are this morning to mark what is on your heart. As those who are here are free to come forward, we have a new ritual with stones and water. You take a stone for everything that is on your heart this morning and place it in the bowl, which already has so much of our love in it. And if you wish to take a stone from around the bowl home with you to remind you of what's on your heart today, you could put that at your breakfast table spot or your bedstand to remind you of your heart's journey today. And so let us now begin, as the music plays, to participate in this ritual. Let's in prayer. Spirit of life and love, which animates our creation, we are grateful for this community of faith, which is with us in both times of joy and sorrow. We hold in our hearts this morning all who are grieving, facing any illness or disability or loss, most especially Sydney Wild, former minister of this church, as she deals with the sudden death of Dennis. Whether shared here this morning or held silently in our hearts, may our joys be multiplied in community, and may all here find comfort and calm. Amen.
As a self-funded church, UUCR relies on the generosity of its members and friends to fund daily operations and to ensure that the church and its resources are here for us and for others now and in the future. Pledges support our worship and music programs, our religious education programs, programs for members and friends, community outreach, and connections to Unitarian Universalism. We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation to the collection plate if you're here in the sanctuary, or at the link on the slide and in the chat box. Thank you for your generosity and your support of our beloved spiritual home.
Thank you so much, Kate and Diane. So this Earth Day weekend in the year 2022, the actual day was last Friday, I want to tell you about one of the most absolutely best and most delicious summers of my entire life. A summer which I now realize was comprised of pure, glorious, and almost accidental simplicity. It was the summer for me of 1988, and feeling ready for some change in our lives as a couple that spring, my now husband Collins and I had both resigned from our jobs in New Jersey. Collins from his several years of work as a computer programmer at the Van Heusen Shirt Company, and I from my 10-year happy stint at the Unitarian Society of Plainfield. I had a new ministerial job lined up in Boston at the Church of the Larger Fellowship, located at UUA headquarters on Beacon Hill, that was to begin in September. So our plan was that come Labor Day, we were going to move there from New Jersey, and then Collins would assumedly find some sort of job. But that spring, our New Jersey home sold almost immediately. And by mid-June, we found ourselves, well, homeless, because we needed to get out of there, and unemployed, homeless and unemployed. Who would have thought? For several months, without a roof over our heads or any income coming in. Luckily, we had this rustic camp, and there it is in northern Maine on Drew's Lake. I bought this thing for $5,500 with an acre of land when I was a minister of a church up there. It was a very rustic wood frame cabin, simple, uninsulated, 2-room rectangular wood structure with a slanted roof and windows that had been salvaged from the demolished Woolworth store in Holton, Maine, and a small screened-in porch, which you can see there on the right. The running water came unfiltered from a foot pump in the middle of in the lake, and the drinking water came from an artesian well that we had to go scoop out of under a nearby rock. It was this great big rock, and there was this cool artesian water that would come up there. The outdoor shower, which provided a semblance of privacy, was attached to a nearby tree, and the stove was a rusty old dual hot plate. The only heat was provided by a trash stove. The refrigerator was ancient, and we had mice, lots of mice. And the toilet, which was Collins's least favorite aspect of the camp, was a bucket into which you'd put a little bit of chemical, and well, no more about that. It was pretty primitive plumbing. So the building was basic, but the natural setting, and I've got a picture of that, this is Drew's Lake, about a mile long, cool, clear, high, green, rocky hills all around it, with about a dozen loons who inhabited the lake. About 6 pairs were chortling their way every night. So each morning that summer, we woke to the sun pouring into the tiny bedroom, and we would put our feet in the lake and drink our coffee, serenaded by the songbirds perched in the surrounding trees. Each night we went to sleep with the sound of those loons and the embrace of the moon and countless stars. And believe me, Linneus, Maine, that's where it was, is so isolated. There was no ambient light to distract the sky. The aurora borealis were just amazing there, and you could see every star in creation from our dock there. And at night, the breeze blew through the windows, and then we'd have those wonderful thunderstorms where you'd hear the rain on the roof. There was no insulation, so every sound came through. The thunder and lightning would shake the whole structure, and it was absolutely fantastic. Every day we swam and read and went canoeing and jogged for miles on the simple dirt road that went around the lake. And we napped every day, lazily in the late afternoon. And as we began to prepare our dinner, there was, of course, no television there, no signal, but there was a little weak NPR station on the top of Mars Hill, and we could get All Things Considered and Garrison Keillor on Saturday evening. And because we were on a strictly reduced budget that summer, because we didn't have any money coming in, we bought simple food and drank very cheap beer. Keystone, $8 a case. Great stuff back in then. I'm not picking on Keystone, it's just one of many cheap beers you can still buy. This was a summer we lived without many of the comforts and consumables that we too comfortable and consumer-oriented Americans had grown accustomed to. And yet I can tell you that that modest, homeless summer, with all of its imposed and chosen sympathies, we were surrounded by a richness and a wealth and a satisfaction that we've never again replicated. That summer, in that simple rustic cabin, despite living with so much less, we really found we had so much more. In fact, we almost felt guilty that summer, surrounded by such simple, profligate wealth. Like Henry David Thoreau, and I preached a sermon about Walden Pond recently to you, like him, we found the spiritual wisdom of simplify, 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 stupid. And when, after so many wonderful summer weeks, it finally came time to close up the camp and move to Boston and to buy a home in Salem, Massachusetts, near where my ancestor Mary Eastie was hung as a witch 8 generations ago, but that's another story. To move to Salem, and so we had to sadly say goodbye to that magical time and that magical place, and we somehow knew that what we were going to lose by not being there. That summer we learned that living with less can definitely be living with more. But enough about my personal summer living on Drews Lake. Let's now move to the larger global picture. Can we see the jacket of the book? In his challenging book, Earth, Making Life on a Tough New Planet, Bill McKibben, who lives with his family in New Hampshire, by the way, matter-of-factly states something that I know everyone in this room this morning and coming in by Zoom already knows, that due to the steady increases in our human population and activity on this earth and our systematic destruction of natural habitats, our heedless economic exploitation of our planet's limited natural resources, and the accelerating climate change that we have induced as consumers, that the relatively stable Earth that humanity has known for many centuries with the sustainable economies and environments which humanity long assumed and counted on as permanent are in fact already lost. And now all that is left for humanity to do, McKibben suggests, is if we can somehow scrape together the collective wisdom and will to do it, is to cobble together a sufficient response to the ecological havoc we have already wrought, thereby possibly managing, for the jury is still out, to maintain a compromised global habitat and a compromised quality of life for all our planet's species, including our Homo sapien selves. I quote a fearful but optimistic McKibben. The time has already passed for urgency. If we are to save ourselves and this planet, we must create an environmental and lifestyle revolution. We must regularly remind ourselves that we and the rest of humanity must change the way we live on this earth and change it fast. I take it on faith, McKibben goes on, and many knowledgeable environmental people with whom I interact reassure me this is so. I take it on faith that despite the widespread and in some cases irreversible global environmental damage that has already occurred, there is, he writes, yet sufficient time and emerging environmental understandings and sustainable technologies for humanity to change its ways, adopt new lifestyles and consumption habits that will permit us to both live well and to protect the fragile ecosystems of Earth for future generations. And then he goes on. But what will be required is a new and insistent consciousness and a new commitment on all of our parts and on the parts of all governments and corporations and agencies that are responsible to shape our shared human future on this planet. A change of consciousness. I think it is irrefutable. And Mercifully, recent polls report that finally, after many decades of denial and obfuscation, fully, thank God, 70% of the American people now believe the earth science. I pray that McKibben is right about the urgent ecological situation we find ourselves in these early years of the 21st century. And therefore, what humanity needs to adopt in both its heart and way of life over the coming years is what I call a systematic new ethic of relinquishment. Let's see that phrase. A systematic new ethic or theology of relinquishment, which is also a radical new ethic of voluntary simplicity, which is also a challenging new lifestyle of purposefully living with less. To guide us, this new ethic, as we radically adjust, and that's the hard part, the way we live on Mother Earth in order to survive. And we must, of course, adopt this new ethic, not in some future generation, but now, in countless ways, without a moment to spare, in our own lifetimes, even if we're 70 or 80, not irresponsibly wait for our children and grandchildren to make these changes and somehow make the necessary life sacrifices and consumer adjustments. We've got to do it now. It is now that we must systematically learn to live with smaller, with smarter, with less. Each of us, as citizens of this stressed and shrinking planet, are now morally and ethically required by both individual choice and collective conviction to live more modestly, more gently, and more responsibly on this earth. I bring you bad news. I am not talking out of school when I tell you that none of this is going to be even vaguely easy for any of us. My ethical message today is as hard and as welcomed for all of us and for me, because need I tell you that even though we Unitarian Universalists fully understand the unsustainability of the way we and the rest of the developed world have been living, despite our clever consciousness, we, despite our own knowledge, have grown all terribly accustomed, like the rest of the culture, to our profligate, consumer-oriented lifestyles. And real changes in our real lives going forward is going to feel like real hard sacrifice. But the truth is that if humanity is to survive on this planet with a quality of life worth having, we here in the developed world will have to adapt to smaller homes, carbon-free cars, largely plant-based diets, and reduced consumables of all kinds. We have to learn to live with greatly reduced energy and natural material consumption, less discretionary travel, and more eco-friendly carpooling, mass transit, bicycling, and walking, less wasteful packaging. I got a little repair kit for my bike tubes yesterday from Amazon. It came in a box this big. Throwaway bottles, containers. Aren't you shocked? I have a friend, by the way, who owns an international cardboard company. It's worth $60 billion company. And he's making out like a bandit right now because of all the things we're now getting in a big box as opposed to walking or driving to Home Depot, just picking it up. And we must engage in much more comprehensive and radical recycling, reusing glass and paper and plastic and metal and rubber in ways we haven't even thought. The recycling we do now is 10% of what we need to do. In the overview, all of us will be called upon to live our lives with this new ethic of relinquishment and thus purposefully reduce our consumption habits and our carbon and human footprints on this earth. And you all, I think, know this. I just want to give you a quick few everyday examples of what I'm talking about. In the days ahead, we're going to be called upon to live in smaller, clustered homes and neighborhoods like those envisioned by the founders of Reston, where we have townhomes all hooked up together in clusters. We need to live with less land footprint, and Reston is one example of how that can be done. We'll need to prepare wholesome, local, increasingly plant-based diets and meals rather than wolfing down greasy meat-based fast food. McDonald's is just down the hill. I like it occasionally. What can I tell you? We will be challenged, those of us who are not already saving time and energy and resources by working at home, to commute differently than we have been with individual cars by the thousands driving into DC. Just think of the cardiovascular side benefits of biking to work, like they do in Denmark. We will learn to eat healthy dinners by candlelight and turn off the distracting electric lights and computers and television. We'll take long evening walks with loved ones rather than sitting at home hour after hour watching TV or glued to the internet burning up electricity. And we'll learn how to create real compost bins in the backyard to enrich our gardens rather than filling our trash cans with overflowing tons of waste for the overwhelmed landfills. We will learn to be charmed and satisfied by our e-vehicle staycations close to home rather than flying to France on a jetliner, perhaps, or Cancun. We'll drive somewhere in our e-cars very close to home. On and on go the list of simple changes you and I can and must choose to make our everyday lifestyles in accordance with what will help humanity as a whole to create a reasoned and sustainable relationship with our planet. Now, as logical, I think, and apparent as all this is, this new ethic of relinquishment, this new lifestyle of increased simplicity will mean choosing to live with less, will not be an easy sell for the American people in general or for us as Unitarian Universalists. All of us in this culture are in the habit of consuming and using and taking pretty much whatever we can harvest, manufacture, or afford. And in our culture of unrivaled economic and material success, the good life, the American dream, has always meant a life of ever-increasing consumption. Let me just speak personally again for a moment and thereby make a heartfelt confession. Although I keenly know in my mind that everything I am saying this morning to you is urgently true, it will be hard for me and my extended family and my spouse to truly adopt this ethic of relinquishment. As relatively affluent Americans with good incomes and plenty of assets, my husband and I will have a hard go of it to pare down and really live with less. Simply put, we have, as rather conventional, consumption-oriented creatures of earth, grown well accustomed to a lifestyle. The spiritual practice, and that's what it comes down to in the end, the spiritual practice of urgently choosing to live with less and to decide to purposefully reduce many of the outward accoutrements and excesses of the way we live will test our materialistic instincts at Homo sapiens. So I'm preaching first, not to the choir, but to myself. I know this is going to be very hard for me, and I'm secure in the knowledge, however, that I am not the only Unitarian Universalist occupying this space this morning for whom this is going to be hard. I know that many of us here in the nation's capital living the good life will have a hard time really changing the way we live. But here's the good news this morning. I passionately believe, and here again is the great paradox I wish to persuade you of this morning. The paradox is, I believe that in all the ways that ultimately matter to us as creatures of earth, indeed less can become more. A life purposefully pared down can be a life enriched. I believe that if we willfully relinquish just some of the trappings of the abundant American lifestyle that we have built around ourselves, whole new worlds of richness and satisfaction and joy can and will open to us. Just as happened to Collins and me that summer, we stripped our lives down in northern Maine to some level of simplicity. The good news is that for all of us, as we face leaner and more challenging global times ahead, when we're responsible really for a basic standard of living for every man, woman, and child on the planet, that out of this relinquishment, out of this doing with less, and through this living more modestly will come a new uncluttered richness, a quiet new fullness, and a surprisingly, I think, abundant future that will bless us every bit as much as our recent materialistic profligacy. And the first spiritual thing that is required is that we not fear these, in many cases, moderate and reasonable lifestyle changes. Although under stress and clearly an environmental crisis, our world does remain yet full of abundance and plenty. And surely as we pare down our excesses, it will prove to be more than enough to satisfy all the needs for humanity. And I think population will take care of itself also in some surprising ways. I don't think we'll have billions of more people on this planet, but that's just speculation on my part. So, this Earth Day, please, let us each personally commit to truly explore, first explore, in our small day-to-day decisions as inhabitants and consumers of Earth, how we might personally live with less by choosing to live with an ethic or a theology of relinquishment. Yes, at first blush, it goes against every one of our instincts as practiced American consumers and Homo sapiens who like to have things. But I promise you, I do, that it can together lead not only to a more sustainable world, but to a new liberating prosperity of heart and mind and soul. Through relinquishment can come wealth. And I say and mean to you this day, amen, let's get on the journey. Amen.
Our closing hymn today is number 16, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple." So please rise as you are willing or able and join in with us. If you are at home on Zoom, the words will be in your chat box.
'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right.
Please be seated. And I send you on your way with these words by David Landis Barnhill, who was born the same year as I was, 1949. So we are engaged in an ongoing struggle, a search for a new relation to the earth. It is also an old relationship, to be in and of place, to truly inhabit the land rather than just live on it. Why is it important? The answer is all around us, in the destruction of habitats, species, and individual beings often done out of ignorance, greed, and fear. The answer is also inside us in a psychological rupture from the physical matrix of our life, nature and our bodies. And the answer is in the way we treat each other. Our debasement and abuse of nature is linked with our debasement and abuse of one another. To heal the social and the psychological, we need to heal our relationship with the earth, and vice versa. As Buddhism teaches, all of life is a mutual co-arising. Everything conditions and is conditioned by everything else. All is one. Amen.
Thank you, Kate and Diane, for all the beautiful music today. We invite our congregants attending worship on Zoom to join us for our virtual Greet Your Neighbor, which is the link will be in the chat box. You can socialize with other members and friends and discuss today's service theme. The link should be coming up soon. Those here in person are invited to join us on the deck. We've got coffee and tea outside. And don't touch the chairs. I know in years past we would stack them, but leave them where they are because we're just leaving them. Also a reminder, there's a family gathering on the playground. I already see some kids out there, so if you want to go meet some new families, you're welcome to do that as well. We hope you'll also use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to leave a message about your appreciation for today's service. Thank you, and enjoy the beautiful warm day because it's going to get colder later in the week.